October is that special time of year where baseball has reached its fall classic, the World Series Championship. This month, we continue to feature our special segments on World Series weather. Hi, I'm Chris May, host of This Day in Weather History, brought to you by the Royal Canadian Mint. Find the new painted dime featuring Blue Nose in your change. Baseball is traditionally played outdoors and exposed to all weather elements. And today it was the freezing cold and impossibly soaking wet that threatened the Phillies' run to the championship that they were on the cusp of completing. And on this day in weather history. So here we are again, moving from the tropical heat and humidity of Florida and into the shockingly fall-like conditions of the north. Coming out of St. Petersburg and heading to Philadelphia after the first two games of the 2008 World Series, the heavily favored Phillies were braced for bad weather. Now they're from here. They know that this is normally the time of year where their NFL brothers, the Philadelphia Eagles, flourish and their NHL brothers dominate. But this is baseball. It started in Florida with spring training, lasted a full summer. Now we were just in Florida for the first couple of games of this World Series, only to return to the perils of the awkward fall season. Game 3, which started on the 25th, and Game 5, which started on the 27th, this day in weather history of the World Series, was delayed by rainstorms, causing both affected games to finish on different dates of the calendar. By Game 5, and with the Philadelphia Phillies up 3-1, they were now on the precipice of capturing the Proud City's first pro sports title in 25 years. This game had all the baseball-related logistics and odds in their favor. They had hot bats, a lights-out pitcher taking the mound, and home field advantage. What could possibly go wrong? But the Phillies' plans for a celebration were put on hold in a most memorable way that night. You're listening to This Day in Weather History, a podcast from the Weather Network in Canada, reminding you to check your change for the new painted dime featuring Blue Nose from the Royal Canadian Mint. Game 5. For days leading up to the return of Philly for games 3 to 5, then Commissioner Bud Selig of Major League Baseball was studying forecasts. To make sure he had the big picture, he was taking his forecasts from a collection of 3 separate weather services. He looked at models and listened to expert meteorological forecasts. Selig's mood never got any better than deep concern. Bottom line was certain. It was going to rain hard and a lot in South Philly when the series shifted north. Models showed that this was to be a relentless rain for days, leaving no perfect window between downpours. It was really shaping up to be a fall classic nightmare for Major League Baseball. But it was decided to play Game 5 as scheduled and hope for the best. And Game 5 of the 104th World Series would begin as scheduled at 8:30 p.m. Eastern on Monday, October 27th. Now, obviously, the conditions were less than ideal, with a light rain falling before game time, but it wasn't expected to intensify until after midnight that night. So we should easily get the game in under the wire, albeit in uncomfortable conditions. Prior to game time and in the light rain, MLB officials met with the Phillies grounds crew, the umpire crew for Game 5, Phillies general manager Pat Gillick, and the Rays counterpart Andrew Friedman. It was decided ultimately by Commissioner Bud Selig that the teams be allowed to take the field and play Game 5. With temperatures plummeting towards 40 Fahrenheit or 4 degrees Celsius, you would have seen some of the Phillies and Rays players debuting a new almost Elmer Fudd-looking New Era game cap. These were specially made official game caps with built-in ear flaps. Think Elmer Fudd, Big Musket, Hunting, Wascally Webbits. But instead of his checkered flannel hat, he's in a bright blue version with a TB emblazoned on the front. Then the rain started early and poured from the first pitch. Despite that, the Tampa Bay Rays rallied in the rain to tie Game 5 at 2-2 in the top of the 6th inning. But then the wheels started to really fall off Major League Baseball's machine. The rain hammered down so hard that the field was totally inundated, and the game was suspended moments later because the field had become a literal quagmire. Game 5, which started on Monday, October the 27th, was suspended after the top of the 6th and called off for the remainder of the night. There had never been a rain-shortened game in series history. This was the first suspension. Then it got worse. The torrential wet weather that stopped short the playing of Game 5 continued into the next day in the Philadelphia area. Now what? The Phillies and Rays would stay deadlocked at 2-2 for another day. The game finally found its conclusion on Wednesday, October 29th. The Phils mercifully closed out the series to take it in 4-1 and saved Major League Baseball from having to make another series of major scheduling adjustments back in Florida, and did bring a championship back to the home of the Liberty Bell for the first time in a quarter century. Tomorrow is October 28th, and for this, we're going back to the year 1707 for the Hoei earthquake that struck south-central Japan. That story is tomorrow on This Day in Weather History with me, your host, Chris May, and brought to you by the Royal Canadian Mint. Find the new painted dime featuring Blue Nose in your change. See you tomorrow.